Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Obviously, I would be in Washington, D.C. at this moment, but as you know, we're living in some very strange and precarious times. Two things on my mind today, primarily, COVID and crime. So the majority of my comments today will be dedicated on those two subjects. First of all, I think that everybody is disappointed about how the vaccine rollout has occurred to this point. I join our partners at the Coastal Health District and share their obvious frustration at being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of those wanting to be vaccinated and the supply chain of getting vaccines to this area. I commit then, and I commit now, to doing whatever the city of Savannah needs to do to help get vaccines delivered to this area and getting shots in arms. Although we are not public health is the public's responsibility. I think it's unfortunate, and I think that it's abysmal that Georgia will rate 49th out of 50 states in the number of vaccines administered. I believe that we could do better, and at the City of Savannah, we are all hands on deck in making it happen. If I need to drive to DC myself and pick up vaccines and bring them back, whatever we have to do, we're committed to doing it. Starting this week, the Coastal Health District is changing how COVID testing is happening at our Savannah Civic Center. The Georgia Department of Public Health has contracted with North Carolina-based Mako Medical to provide COVID-19 testing services. This shift will free up health department staff and resources to focus on COVID-19 vaccinations. You will need to pre-register for a COVID-19 test, but you will not receive a specific appointment day or time. Once you are registered, you can go to the Civic Center at any time during regular testing hours, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. There will be no reduction in testing availability and no out-of-pocket cost. Health insurance will be billed for those with insurance, but be assured that no one will be charged a fee or turned away. You can schedule a test online at covidtestsavannah.com, covidtestsavannah.com, or call 912-230-9744, 912-230-9744, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. or Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Tonight at 5:30 p.m., Savannah will join other cities across the country by lighting buildings and ringing bells to honor the lives lost to COVID-19. So far, the numbers have been absolutely overwhelming. 2 million around the world, 400,000 deaths in the United States, 11,095 deaths in Georgia, and 264 to date in Chatham County. These are more than statistics. These are 264 souls, 264 mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, empty seats at the table, 264 calls that will not be answered. So we do this not only in memory of the lives that were lost in this war against COVID-19, but we also do it in support of the families that remain, the families that still grieve, the families that still mourn. This is the City of Savannah's collective hug, and we hope everyone will find some way to participate. That's even cutting on your lights at your home, standing outside with a candle, however you do it. The City Hall bells will ring at 5:30 p.m., and our building will continue to be illuminated in red. Anyone wishing to participate is invited to ring bells, illuminate homes, houses of worship, or businesses, hold a socially distant candlelight vigil, and document their remembrances on social media using the hashtags Savannah Remembers and Savannah Strong. Savannah Remembers and Savannah Strong. Among the houses of worship that we are aware of, and this is not an exhaustive list, the Unitarian Universalist of Savannah, Unity of Savannah, Congregation Mikveh Israel, True Love Baptist Church, St. Philip Monumental AME Church, Mosaic Church, Greater Gaines Chapel, Trinity Baptist Church of Savannah, Asbury Memorial Church, Pilgrim Baptist Church of Savannah, Tybee Island Ministerial Association, Trinity Methodist Church of Tybee, and St. Paul's CME Church. Again, we know that we have more houses of faith that are participating, and we encourage them to do so. We thank them, and we invite everyone, to please take part in this monumental display of hope, comfort, encouragement, and love. I particularly this morning would like to thank Fox and Weeks funeral directors for hosting a beautiful and fitting ecumenical tribute at their facilities last evening. I was honored to serve as Master of Ceremonies. As COVID accompanied us into the new year, so did gun violence. We recently announced the arrest of a shooting just hours into the new year due to some great detective work of the Savannah Savannah Police Department, and making sure that they were able to apprehend the person accused of committing a shooting that killed one person and injured two others. It's also very important to note that when people see something, they say something, things happen. And that's how this equation works. If people see something, they say something, the police are able to do better investigative work, things happen. Charges are levied, arrests are made, and people are off the street. And that individual does not have the opportunity to do it again. If the police are doing great work and no one's saying anything, crimes don't get solved and more crimes happen. So on Saturday, I was notified that a 26-year-old young man had lost his life to gun violence. Another family victimized in our community. As the police are investigating this incident, I'm again asking for the community's assistance in bringing some closure or some measure of closure to another family in our city. Someone knows what happened. I continue to salute the work of the men and women of Savannah Police in the midst of a pandemic, particularly as our criminal justice system has been brought to a grinding halt, as people in the street that probably don't deserve to be there are out, as tempers have been short. They are, and they continue to be, with the public's help, solving crime and, where possible, preventing crime. I've often been asked about what I believe the reasons for violent crimes are, particularly gun-related crime, and I think that our research indicates several things. First thing is confrontations, altercations that are being resolved with weapons. You have people that can't get along, they have some type of disagreement, somebody introduces a gun into the equation, and you have a deadly result. In a state like Georgia, where guns are everywhere, and the police's ability to be able to address people that do not have guns legally are hampered, this is part of the result that we have. The second thing is drug sales and purchases. If you look over our cases, oftentimes it involves either purchase of drugs, sales of drugs, or some type of robbery involving some type of drug-related item. 3, gun-related incidents. And again, we recognize that's live a life of his own, and individuals who are currently awaiting trial for various offenses and are now victims of retaliation or retaliating against witnesses. And I've told you on numerous occasions, it amazes me to talk to someone who's been the victim of gun violence, and they'll tell me they don't know who shot them, or they know who shot them and they don't want to tell, which is the indicator that they prefer to handle it themselves and they want to handle it in the streets. And so that is a indication to officers that something else is going to happen. Our preliminary numbers from 2020, and again, these are preliminary, indicate that we have had a 33% increase in homicides, which for us equates to about 9 more homicides than 2019. But those numbers may be possibly adjudicated when grand juries happen again to actually 6 additional homicides rather than 9. There is a whole adjudication process. If it's deemed to be justifiable, if it's deemed to be self-defense, then that does not count in terms of our homicides. The outstanding detectives of the Savannah Police Department have a clearance rate of 77%, while the national clearance rate is 60%. So essentially, they have solved 3 out of 4 homicides last year. Comparatively, cities across the country have experienced unusually high homicide rates in 2020. Although this is not an excuse for us, I do think that it reflects a phenomenon that is not limited to Savannah. We're living in some very strange times, and people are going through all types of different emotions. So although we are up somewhat in homicides, in rape, we're down 12%. We, of course, want to get it down 100%, but today, 12%. Rape other is 40% decrease. Commercial robberies, 16% decrease. Residential robberies, 29% decrease. Aggravated assault with gun, non-domestic, 19% increase. Again, we talked about incidents involving guns. Violent crime, 3% increase. Total property crime is a 23% decrease. And total Part 1 crime is an 18% decrease. So we put the numbers out there, and we're not running, and certainly we take responsibility for the things that we feel are positive and for the things I think we need to do better. And so, as you know, Chief Mentor, and he's here, is able to answer any questions you have specifically about those numbers. I do think that we have some good initiatives that we have talked about in the public space to help address some of these issues. But ultimately, the bottom line, regardless of what the police do, is the willingness of this community and the willingness of the members who live here to be able to see, to tell what they see. And that's our bottom line. Our Savannah Cares Committee, Citizens Accountability and Review of Emergency Services, is now also seeking citizen input as it continues its work. They will host interactive meetings with residents to gather comments, concerns, and feedback on contact and interactions between them and police. And again, this is positive and negative. We only had 1 person to show up last week. So we're asking people to take advantage of this opportunity to share their experiences with citizens who will make recommendations to the Savannah Police Department. The task force will interview participants individually to maintain privacy and social distancing. Those interested may make an appointment by calling Savannah Cares savannahga.gov, Savannah Cares at savannahga.gov, or by calling 912-650-7878, 912-650-7878. We do have a session today, the 18th. There's one today at 12 noon.
Yesterday.
No, the date was wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's today at 12 noon, and we apologize for that. It's today at 12 noon at the WW Law Center. If you're interested, please get that information out. Please contact Savannah Cares at savannahga.gov. Call 912-650-7878. You can still get on the calendar for today. And if you cannot make it there, we can give you the Zoom link so you can be a part. So please excuse that the date was wrong. They said yesterday, but yesterday was actually a holiday. They meant today. So today at WW Law. So appointments are also available on January the 26th at 6 p.m. at the Southwest Chatham Library, February 2nd, starting at noon at the Carver Village Community Center, and February 6th at 10 a.m. at the Savannah Civic Center. And we thank all of you, our media partners, for getting that word out. The task force will not release participants' names to the public and will only use them to help in this investigation. Our police department has already accepted and implemented interim recommendations from the task force, in addition to adding several new programs like the Behavioral Health Unit to promote positive and effective interventions. Friends of Foresight still need your ideas to help create Foresight Park's first ever master plan. They've reopened their survey at friendsofforesight.org, friendsofforesight.org, to get more feedback, especially from groups who are and have been underrepresented during the first round. So we're asking our residents to get that. We are looking particularly for input from young people and our Black and Hispanic residents who were underrepresented in the first go-around. This is our park, our signature park, and we need feedback from all of our residents to shape its future. In addition to the survey, you can post on the interactive ideas wall and add comments or questions to the interactive map of the park. Finally, our thoughts and prayers are with our nation this week as we undergo what we expect and believe will be a peaceful, constitutional transition of power in the executive branch of our federal government. I thank President Donald J. Trump and Vice President Michael Pence for their service, and we welcome President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr. and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris to the public service again. Approximately 60 members of Savannah's own 165th Airlift Squadron of the Georgia National Guard are on the ground in the nation's capital in support of the massive security effort, and we pray for their safety and their safe return, and we thank them for their service. Locally, we remain on heightened alert with enhanced security protocols in place, and we will remain in this status until further notice. Some things you may see, most things you won't. We are dedicated and determined to protect Savannah and Savannahans, and we will do just that. That ends my prepared remarks, and I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
I know this was the case last week, kind of just double checking. Any known threat to Savannah at this time for this week?
Nothing to speak of. But again, I think the great part about this is that our police department, Chief Venter, myself, we maintain excellent relationships with law enforcement agencies and similar entities across the nation. And so, you know, this is a great part of interagency cooperation. And so we have our eyes and our ears open, and you know, we're prepared. I think part of our preparedness is to be able to be flexible enough to adjust as need be. So nothing that I would think would be to speak of this point. However, we know that state capitals are targets as well, and so we're watching.
My only other question for you is about the inauguration tomorrow. With the transfer of power and the new administration coming in, personally, how are you feeling about the future of the nation with this new administration?
I'm hopeful. This has been a very ugly period in our history. It's always positive to be able to turn a page. I would hope that at the end of the day, we forget that we're Democrat or Republican or independent, libertarian, and become Americans again. This is something that I would have never thought I would have experienced, and I'm concerned about our young people who see this type of behavior. And so I think we have to really talk about the concept of e pluribus unum, out of the many, one. And at the end of the day, we're many, but at the end of the day, we're also one. So I'm praying for them.
Thank you. I have a quick question for Chief Richard. Do you want
I'll call them up after.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
I wanted to circle back to the vaccine rollout. I know the governor had mentioned that the poor rankings of the state have a lot to do with some data entry issues. Based on your conversations with local public health officials, what are the issues that they're having, and how have they asked you for help in any way? How do you think you can help them?
Our office has been flooded with people calling. I've been contacted, people asking. They just want to get the vaccine. That's encouraging. I know of people in their 80s and 90s that want the vaccine. I think what's happening is now, as our numbers go up, they're getting scared. And this should be the last thing they worry about. We recognize the state controlled how all of that happened. I think that we knew at some point that the vaccine was going to come. And I wish that the state overall would have had the infrastructure to prepare local health districts to deal with what we knew would be a flood of people. They did not, and so as a result, we had to pause locally in administering vaccines until they could catch up. Again, I salute their work locally here. I mean, I think they're doing the best they absolutely can. They need help, and they need help with infrastructure. They need help with supply chain to help make this happen. Again, I'm willing to do whatever we can to help. If we need to find retired nurses and doctors, if we need to get EMTs, if I need to have firefighters, however, whatever it is we need to do. We recognize this is the primary issue for us right now. And so, although again, the city of Savannah is not responsible for it, we recognize that we could play a role, and so we continuously offer our help to them. Like I said, if I have to get a pickup truck and go somewhere to go get some vaccines, if that's what we have to do, that's how important this is. Because every day, last week was our deadliest week in Georgia. 4 out of the 5 days. Friday was 154 people in the state died. And the deadliest date before that was like August 20th. So, the fact is that we're still having these issues. And so people are concerned. And so we want to get our first responders inoculated, and we want to make sure that our seniors get inoculated. But again, right now, there's no clear system. And, our state needs to help us with that. Good morning.
You mentioned the low turnout for your Savannah Mayor's task force community outreach. Is there, any plan to perhaps expand that outreach to other events, district town hall meetings, anything just to get maybe a better response from the community?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think the first thing is that we're in a COVID environment, and I think that's the primary driver. Obviously, if we were not, it would be different. Again, this was also the first one. You know, maybe it was not convenient to people. Maybe people were sitting back watching what other people would do. We do have appointments scheduled for today. So that's encouraging, and I think the committee at the end of this series of meetings, if they determine they need more and we have overflow, then we'll expand it. You know, I think we're prepared to do that. It's no major rush at this point. They want to make sure that we have a good balance of public input. Thank you. Good morning.
I just have a question just to clarify, on homicides, you said that the rate is up, but the homicides are up, but the rate is down 12%. What does that mean?
The rates are up. Our rates of homicide are up 33.
But you said something about some rate being down 12%. It was shortly after you mentioned that there's a justifiable.
Rapes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, rapes are down 12%. Yeah. And so again, I mean, I think that when we look at crime, we have to look at crime in the macro. You know, we look at one indicator, and we stick at that. And again, when you look at it comprehensively, crime in this city is down. The homicides that have occurred in our community are not random incidents. No way. These are people who know each other, people who have beef with each other. And some of them occur in places where we can't put police. If I pull out a gun and I shoot one of you right now, Chief Mentor is right there. Now, he might solve it, but he can't prevent it from happening. And that's the point that we're trying to make when people say, well, no, I think that for us, and I think it talks to our ability to enhance our police budget, particularly as it relates to technology, to help get these things solved, to help give them the tools that they need. And again, some of the things the Chief Mentor mentioned, our behavioral health unit, you know, these are the types of things we want to be able to expand, to again, change the way that we do policing. And do it in a way that I think is more people-focused and higher touch, to be honest with you. So, you know, I talked about that because it's a conversation that's occurring throughout the country. And I know people want to look at headlines. You know, there are some cities that are well over 75%. New York City, by comparison, had 90% increase in gun-related shootings in 2020, 90%. This is something happening across the country. We have to get our lives back to whatever that new normal is. Once grand juries, I believe, start happening again, once indictments start coming down, I would fully expect that some people who do not deserve to be on the street will be taken off the street. And we'll be able to see and really appreciate the work that our police are doing. Ultimately, and soon once she gets settled in, I want to make sure that we have a communication with our new district attorney, because I think that gun crimes and crimes involving guns need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, to include juveniles. That if you have a gun, we have to send this message. If you're going to do an illegal act with a gun, you need to pay the price. That has to be the deterrent. Because it's interesting, throughout my history, even through law enforcement, whenever the federal government was brought in because they have such a high standard of gun crimes, people didn't like that because they knew they were going to go away. And so we have to set that same standard here locally in Chatham County. And I'm hoping that our district attorney will help us to do that.